Oh, I see it. Okay, I shall share it on my Facebook. Hi everyone, Paul and I gonna tag the beautiful Paul Lee and I are back on um, the Footnotes podcast. Uh, Live on YouTube. Come hang out with us. Come hang out with us and ask fun questions. It looks like we're live now.
Oh, we're live?
Basically, yeah. We've been live for 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Oh, I've just been looking at my phone.
The thumbnail is very interesting, so hopefully it improves.
Let's check this out.
All right. All right, we're live.
It's a fun. Okay. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Now I might have to do some manual switching of the screens. In our
Okay.
Google Hangout days, it used to switch automatically for us.
Okay. Are you just sharing screen?
Yeah, so I'm sharing my desktop screen,
Okay.
but the desktop audio is also coming through, so people can hear you.
Hmm.
Right now we're at 0 viewers, but you know how it is.
Yeah, I'm used to it.
Our
Okay.
Google
Oh
Hangout
my god.
days used to switch manual.
Some great quality. I gotta say, my face looks amazing
I
on the
I
YouTube
I,
feed.
I agree for sure. So
Hey,
Paul,
Jun.
how have you
What's going
been?
on?
It's been a long time since an official podcast.
Yeah, where have you been?
Well,
I've been here. I've been in London.
yeah, I've been in Thornhill in Toronto, chilled at my parents' place, and just I started school again, which is fun. Yeah.
You're studying? You're learning?
Yes, I'm studying and learning and doing all those good things.
What are you on?
We're on MSK, so you had to think about that for a second.
Should be worried.
Probably not.
Okay.
I think the kids are all right.
And I'm assuming that you don't do anatomy, right?
Yeah, I mean we're supposed to watch some like anatomy lectures,
Okay.
but it's kind of still at your own pace. You do what
Okay.
you want to do.
See, I feel like I'm currently in the McMaster model myself during this pandemic.
Yeah,
A lot of things are just at my pace. My pace is really slow.
yeah.
So,
So doesn't your summer start at some
doesn't my
point?
summer start?
Yeah, does it start at some point?
It's supposed to start in June,
Oh,
but it might as well just be right now because, yeah, it feels like summer. It feels like summer without all the joys of summer. You know,
what joys of summer are you looking forward to, Paul?
the great outdoors,
Oh
the great
yes.
weather,
Mm-hmm.
um, some friends to do things with.
Oh yes.
I was intending to go to a cabin for a bit,
Yep.
a cottage of some sorts, but that's not happening right now.
I see.
Although I almost think that going away into the woods is like probably the best thing to do right now.
Yeah.
Live off the land,
Not a
hunt
bad
some deer.
not a bad idea.
No,
This year I'd really like to get into some sort of agricultural project. You know,
agricultural project.
yeah, some kind of just growing food.
Huh. Hydroponics.
Maybe be just becoming more like self-reliant, self-sustainable.
Okay, I see.
I've been having like a bit of troubles with food again. I don't
Okay.
I've had some on again off again problems with my gut, my lower gut,
Yeah.
like might be some sensitivity. And I had it throughout high
IBS.
school. Maybe it certainly is irritable, but I don't know if it's irritable bowel syndrome. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, so I've been like thinking about food again and like what can we change about our diet and how can we do
What's the
things
best
better?
for you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it seems like I'm again doing the no rice kind of thing. So not particularly keto, but I noticed that like
But,
just when I ate white rice, like my dumps would not be good quality, and I would get
mm,
feedback directly like, ugh, it wasn't just having it
mm,
that well. So I'm
see.
listening to my body. Um, I'm chewing things a lot more thoroughly, just to help my
Mm,
gut out here.
see.
Not eating too many things at once, and yeah, so far it's been working out. But it's like the first time I started like having gut pain again, I was like, oh shit, here we go again. Like, because I hate it. Like it's been like sort of like this scourge on my life, on my otherwise like very happy life, for the past like 6 7 years.
Mm,
But now I've been reframing my thinking around it a bit, flipping the script,
okay.
for our
Yeah.
longtime listeners. And so now I'm finding like, okay, maybe the sensitivity is helping guide me towards like a better, more optimal diet for me,
Right.
which would be great. And so as a result of it, I like fasted for a day. I've been eating different foods, and it's there have been some like really high highs of energy and like just feeling amazing, that I didn't know was possible through like dietary changes. So I'd like to just keep going with that. See how healthy can I get? How healthy can I get with like the right food choices, listening to my body,
Mm-hmm.
and all those good things.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I'm starting a very long journey of that sort, but I'm very excited to see it progress.
I don't know if it's starting. Like this is something that you've been talking about for a number of years now, and you've had run-ins with rice, and I pity you. I really do. Rice is such a great and amazing food, and it's like my main source of grains of carbs outside of bread, which I also love.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've tried like brown rice or different types of grains. Quinoa is great. There's different ways to get your grains in.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So recently I've been experimenting with, I think it's buckwheat noodles. In Korean it's meme.
okay. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I find that to be a lot more compatible than rice for whatever reason. So
Hmm.
very very pleased with the different grain options
Hmm.
and things.
It sucks because like it tastes good. There's a lot of things that taste good that you just like don't feel great about.
Yeah.
And I wish I could run a trial on myself, but it's really difficult to just like pick out a specific food and see if it's good for your gut because you need to eat other foods at the same time. So you
Yeah.
never know. You just it's like have you ever played that game, the code word game, where there's like balls of different colors and then like it tells you which colors are right and I don't know. Anyway, the point is very complicated. Nutrition science has always been so hazy to me. I never know what the best evidence is. So I just sort of eat whatever Canada got food guidelines tell me to do and it seems to be okay. But
Yeah.
some days I do feel really shit,
Yeah.
you know? Have you ever like woken up because you let out a fart when you're sleeping and it smelled so bad that it woke you up?
No, I have not.
I don't know if you've ever had that, but I had like steak one day and it was just like really greasy stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think it just like did not sit right with me. Anyway, the whole point is, you just don't know until you try.
Yeah. I mean, like, man, that must have been like a hell of a fart. I wish I could have been there too. Witness the reaction. I don't know if I'd want to smell it, but it's
Phenomenal.
like health shouldn't be this hard. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like I feel like it's something that should come naturally. But
Evolutionarily speaking, yeah, right?
yeah, like I don't know. Most animals out there seem to just know what to eat and like they just intuitively do it and they're like all healthy and running around and jumping on trees like the squirrels I see.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and so it frustrates me because health shouldn't be this hard. Um, but I think there's some like really cool new directions, as genomics
Hmm.
likes. So have you heard of this dude called Dr. Shiva?
No, that sounds like a pretty common name, though.
Yep. So he's Indian. He invented email when he was 14.
Yeah.
Um, he has like 4 degrees from MIT, and
Okay.
his PhD is in systems biology.
Mm. Okay.
And for his PhD, like he got this grant to go to India, and then like his grandmother's like one of those holistic healing providers.
Okay.
So like
Hmm.
he would kind of refer to stories of his grandma from back in the day when he was growing up. Like people would come into the mountains to see his grandma, and then she would kind of like look at their face, like their facial features, and all the kind of
Okay.
details. Make some kind of diagnosis, and then just give them the right spices and combinations of foods, and then like he would see the patients getting better. So,
Mm.
as the subject of his MIT PhD, he was like, "How how does this actually work?" So, like, as a systems biologist, as someone who's interested in like more of the holistic lens of biology that's beginning to emerge, he went back to India and
Hmm.
then he studied this ancient medicinal system, and then he
Hmm.
he has this website now called like Systems Health. So, I subscribed and got a it's just like a 30-40 question questionnaire and then it gives you like
Okay.
dietary recommendations and stuff, which is where the buckwheat noodles came out.
Okay.
So where I was going with this was I think a lot of what we've done with our like health and our science is like we've broken it up through like the reductionist approach, right?
Hmm.
we and like when you're digging through nutrition science, like you can get so lost in like the I don't know. There's like 1,000 studies saying a thousand different things.
Hmm.
I don't know. Like I'm sure that this food or this drug is like can be amazing for some people, but it might not be amazing for me. Like so, there's like all those complexities involved.
Right.
So it's like in terms of achieving better health, just the current scientific approach to nutrition and things like that, I don't think they really cut it.
Okay.
Um,
Fair.
because I think there's a new paradigm emerging in terms of the science of the body, science of nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like you know how like back in the day in cell bio, our very first year group project, we were like looking at the mechanism pathways, and we were like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
if we could just research it a little bit more, like we'll like completely map out the pathway and like we'll just figure it out and we'll know where to put the
Right.
drug and we want to have a breakthrough. We want to have a breakthrough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I remember that was like a common motivation for the both of us. But
Breakthrough.
yeah, but I think what was wanted was like you wanted to understand the whole picture because
Right.
like often in science and like those basic sciences you get parts and pieces of the puzzle of the cell, right? A
Mm-hmm.
cell probably has like tens, like millions of chemical cascades and reactions and pathways going on at once. It's like a city, but
Mm-hmm.
it's like, I don't know, we identified, if we're speaking about Toronto, we identified like Yonge Street, and then we identified like a few streets coming out of Yonge Street. And we're like, oh shit, yeah, that's a major pathway. I think we're seeing Toronto now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, if you see Yonge Street, you can get a pretty big picture of what Toronto is like, but you're still not seeing the whole map, right?
Right.
So what this Dr. Shiva guy did is, in addition to studying like systems biology, he also he he's good with computers, like, and he wanted to do like what he did with email. What he did with email was create like an online system of communications, and he could map that out on like this computer engineering diagram. He wanted to do that
Mm-hmm.
same thing for the cell. So the cell is going to have all these cellular communication pathways, and you should be able to, via computer, just map that out completely. And not only map that
Mm-hmm.
out completely, but have that as a cellular model running on the computer. So when you have
Mm-hmm.
certain inputs, you should be able to predict what kind of outputs there will be in terms of, I don't know, you could mathematically model the amount of inflammatory markers or things like that.
Sure. Yeah.
So turns out he created that system in like 2006, and it's actually very fascinating. So
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to do a screen share,
Oh, fancy. All right.
a screen share of like a video clip of his. I think you'll appreciate it, and I think it gets to the breakthrough that we were talking about, and maybe we can do some
Mm-hmm.
commentary on it. So I shall share. Ooh, all right.
Okay.
So we're going on the Googs. Oh, that's the Googs. Maybe we'll go on the open a new window. Oh, that's the man. And so this was the video I was watching earlier today.
We're going to be doing a live stream this evening. I know it's a little bit late, but let's see if I start this here. And all part of this, their media front end. But that's what's fundamentally going on here, and this needs to.
Can you hear the audio, Paul?
I cannot.
You cannot. So
Mm-hmm.
I shall
Thanks, Mom.
Hey, do you wanna play along the same link at the
Yeah.
same time on the computer?
Uh-huh.
Okay, going from 640.
I'm gonna have to give me some time here.
Yes, we'll give Paul some time to load it up.
So what am I expecting from this video?
Just a demonstration of the computer model he uses.
Okay.
That's the only bit
And
relevant
the
in our
viewers at home can
context.
also not hear it.
The viewers at home will be able to hear it because the desktop audio is being shared.
Oh, okay. So I'll just pull up our.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Being really slow.
Yeah.
I will pull up our
yeah.
own feed
Yes.
if you want to play it.
Yeah. It'll be a few seconds slower, but that'll be all right. So I'll just start now.
Go ahead. Yep.
And all part of this, their media front end. But that's what's fundamentally going on here, and this needs to be understood. People also know that because of my deep love and interest in medicine, having grown up in India where my grandmother was a traditional healer, where she would find the right formulations, when I came back to do my PhD, I got very, very interested in wanting to apply technology to medicine. And one of the big grand challenges in 2003 was, could you mathematically model the whole human cell? So imagine the cell in your body is all these chemical reactions. Again, those people on Instagram, you can go and see the YouTube video if you want to watch it where I'm showing the slides. And what you find is that if you think about the cell as a big factory, that all these chemical reactions are going on. Now imagine if you could use a computer to actually model those chemical reactions. Well, if you could do that, something extraordinary could take place. If you could pull that off, you don't have to go kill animals. You could figure out what's working long beforehand on the computer. So that was what I created for my PhD work at MIT, and I called that CytoSolve, where we were able to take all these chemical reactions found in individual papers. So if we wanted to look at the immune system, or if we wanted to look at inflammation, we look at all the papers written out there, find these little ball and stick diagrams, extract them, convert them to mathematical models, and compute them. And that was really my systems approach with CytoSolve, which allowed us to do lots and lots of pathways and really do large-scale diseases. And CytoSolve, one of the first papers I published was back in 2011. And to give you the practical idea of it, as I mentioned, in the traditional systems in medicine, people would combine different herbs, and if you were sick, they would find the right medicine for the right person at the right time. So here's a very interesting example of the kinds of things we can do with CytoSolve. Some of you may know there's a very powerful herb called turmeric. It's actually a rhizome. The active ingredient is curcumin, and we know it lowers inflammation. Lowering inflammation and modeling inflammation is very good for stopping what we call cancer or various diseases. Here, the outer circle is a cell wall, the inner circle is a nuclear wall, and what I've done with our approach is we can extract all the inflammatory mechanisms and look at all the places curcumin stops inflammation. That's what that red line is. And we can actually mathematically model this. Similarly, here's looking at resveratrol, the ingredient that's in the skin of red grapes. And here we also can see where that interacts. So what we can use this technology for, again, without killing animals, without even going to the test tube testing, is use the computer to understand the chemical reactions. And then, using that understanding, we could also then interrogate the system to say, hey, can we mathematically understand how much curcumin, how much resveratrol do I put together, so we can figure out how that will affect inflammation in the body. And that's precisely what we're able to do. We can do these really cool simulations. So that's sort of the mechanisms. And so in this case, I'm running an experiment. I'm not giving any curcumin, any resveratrol. In the last column, it's the amount of inflammation in the body. And we're measuring that at the cellular level. We're simulating it. So we know there'll be high inflammation is what we're setting. Next, what we're doing is, what happens if I just give curcumin, which is, imagine taking in turmeric or high dosages of it. You notice the inflammation drops. Now imagine me just giving resveratrol. Similarly, it drops. And what happens if I do a combination. Food, the power of medicine. Food is medicine. I reduce curcumin by 60%, reduce this by 40, same total, concentration. And look what happens here. The inflammation drops by nearly 200%. So we're looking at the power of synergy. So when you take a systems approach to medicine, different than this approach, this is what we're able to do with Cytosol. We're actually able to look at compounds. We look at food, natural products. And Cytosol, we help a lot of great young companies who really want to help you, really want to help the world, really want to create great medicines from natural products. That's what I love, where we're able to take these combinations on the computer long before we have to do clinical testing. And by the way, this is how we build airplanes, right? We don't simply go throw a pilot in. We don't go kill animals. We do everything on the computer, and then we go do limited amounts of, let's say, in vitro or wind tunnel testing. And so we've built an amazing platform for really truth, freedom, and health, where we're using Cytosolve to mine all the literature, integrate knowledge, without just relying on one person to go to the scientific source of truth. So when we really look at the immune system, as I've talked,
Okay,
All right.
that's pretty cool.
I know, right?
Makes me wonder why it hasn't been done before.
Yeah, and it's like, so you can imagine the work is completed in like 2006, 7.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's adopted by like, so him and his team and some other scientists. I could
Mm-hmm.
imagine this like requiring a good amount of computer savvy to operate.
Mm-hmm.
But also like, I think there's, if you think about the pharmaceutical industry, it's like multi-billion dollar, like, and we know all the testing processes, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, like, and all the money and kind of like habits already put in place
Mm-hmm.
in terms of the way we experiment on mice, the way we have these stages, the way the funding is conducted.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have something that is just so ingrained in the current paradigm, when you have like a newcomer kind of come in and say like, hey, actually, we don't need all that.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a major league disruption, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I could also see a number of different reasons why something like this wouldn't be more adopted now. Yeah. What did you think outside?
Well, of course, like the skepticism is how well does this apply to human models?
Yeah.
I don't know how much you've read into his work, like if it's become if he's mapped it onto like if he's compared it with real life examples, kind of thing. Like you can simulate all these things, and the numbers were cool, but it's just part of the simulation, right? How do we know if it works? Those are the
Yeah.
kind of questions that I have.
Yeah.
But definitely, really, really cool technology.
Yeah. That definitely fair questions. So what I am familiar with is that, so you can, like, these computer models aren't the be all end all, because they are just like cellular models, and like how does this apply on a larger human scale? That still has to be tested, right? What it
Mm-hmm.
is really good for is like identifying potential, like if you have potential like combination therapies that
Mm-hmm.
you like identify, like you can model like hundreds of thousands of combinations without having to do that like in person, right? So let's say like
Mm-hmm.
when we're frustrated with our diet, like I don't know, rice on its own might be okay, but when we eat rice and pork, it's like, oh, that causes like weird farts. Like I have no idea why, but when we have just like pork, it's all right too. So it's like there's weird like both synergistic and I don't know what the opposite of synergy is. asyner
Antagonistic.
yeah, antagonistic or like synergistic, but in the bad way.
Okay.
Asynergistic kind of
Okay.
reactions that take place that we don't really understand. So the power of a computer model like that is like, imagine you could run through like 100,000, like a million different combinations, and out of
Hmm.
those select some really promising ones. And out of that, then you can begin to like have that tried in like human models or animal models.
Hmm.
And so you kind of take the guesswork out of the initial stages of that research. So I find that
Right.
very cool. But
It's like sort of a complementary thing.
yes, yeah, exactly. So, I, I really admire this guy. So if anyone wants to check out Dr. Shiva, I think he's a really great influence in the world right now. Um, yeah, so that's a cool finding I wanted to share. And in terms of in terms of our health and like moving forward, I I think a systems health, a holistic health approach will be very beneficial. Oh, I'm not hearing you.
I was muted this whole time. Excellent. Excellent. Um, just on the topic of holistic and systems perspective on nutrition and health. Um, I'm curious. We sort of toss those words around a lot, and maybe it's people who don't know about it as much toss it around a lot more, because it seems like a good way. It's like a good escape to explaining something. It's like, oh, like see the big picture. There's a lot of different like components moving. Like take a step back and look at it on a bigger level. Like all of those things seem to be good ways to escape understanding maybe like the precise details or mechanisms of something, which is something we talked about previously. Um, I'm wondering though, how do you convert that sort of conversation for the general audience and say, okay, so this is how you should really be seeing holistic and um, yeah, that this is how you should be seeing holistic care. Uh, like these are the sort of major principles. These are the things that you should understand to understand what it means when you're talking about holistic or systems
Mm.
approach to care.
Yeah, and
What do you think?
yeah, very very fair point. I think so. Like just to give an example of like how the holistic and like more mechanistic approaches complement each other. Like when you see that back on the Dr. Shiva like video, there was a map of an like an inflammatory pathway in the cell
Yeah.
when the curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric, was acting. And then because we
Hmm.
have like all these years of like cell biology and microbiology and kind of related courses in our curriculum, like anyone with that background can see like, oh, there's like the COX-2 pathway. Oh, there's the NF kappa B. Oh, there's like another inflammatory pathway I didn't know about that's kind of interacting. So like
Hmm.
the great thing about the mechanistic model of science and our education is that like we've been able to identify all those pieces, but the power of seeing that fully generated computer model is you can start to see where the systems interact with one another and influence each other.
Hmm.
So that's just one thing I wanted to say about the complementarity of both approaches. Like when you can both scale in and zoom out and have both perspectives make sense and complement each other, that's very
Hmm.
powerful for your understanding of the world. And then as to like how these buzzwords like systems health, holistic approaches, like how they can like actually affect people, like how I think if I'm understanding the question is like how can that be of how should people understand that, or like what does that even mean,
Yeah.
and how can it help people in a practical way? So the answer is like for me, like I feel as though I'm not rooted in any like holistic or systems health like approach as of yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of my training and education so far has been as like a has been more mechanistic in like the training and the methodology. But there are different systems of medicine. So like Chinese medicine or like systems of ancient Indian medicine that Dr. Shiva studied that do have more of a like conceptual framework for understanding the human
Mm-hmm.
body and like and systems as a whole. And like according to this Indian medicine system, I've been reading just a little bit about it, but there are like three core functions of like the human body as a system. And one is conversion, so the conversion of different material foods and other things that we consume, breathe, drink, into energy, into the cellular structure of our body, etc., etc. So
Mm-hmm.
a force of conversion. Another one is a force of storage. So when those things become our cells and become micronutrients, like how are they stored? And the third force governing is like the force of transport. So how do all those things move and how are they appropriately and timely moved according to the needs and demands of our body? And so
Mm-hmm.
like traditional that system of medicine saw those three factors as like the three main things that you can start to see in a person by like asking questions about like their mood, their energy, observing things on their like skin, having any noticeable changes on your skin or like on your face, and they would be able to make a diagnosis as to which of those factors were destabilized. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're like a tripod being held up by these three base points, your your fundamental things, then if one of them is shifted, then you can see like if the other two legs are still good, like you're still pretty good. But like if another one shifted, like oh you're drooping down lower. So that's one way of understanding it. But like if you're just given that explanation, then it might not be satisfactory. It might not be satisfactory to the scientist or to the mind who is so used to seeing the world in the world of mechanisms and having things make sense in that particular way. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think the amazing thing that's happening now is the marriage of those ancient holistic systems with the modern science that can give us a fuller understanding of like what's going on with our bodies, with our health, with our world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So
So it feels like mm, it feels like you can't have holistic without the mechanistic, in my view.
right.
Because I think the holistic maybe it's like the egg without its contents. You know, it holds everything together, but it lacks substance to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have the actual, and I say actual as though I'm sort of dismissing the holistic, I think subconsciously. If you don't have the substance, the mechanisms, then I just don't feel like it's adequate to explain the world. I think it makes sense to sort of generate these holistic ideas because it's, let's call it sort of, it's kind of a top down approach, right?
Yes.
But then at the end of it, like you need to gather the data to confirm that your top-down works.
Yes.
That same way, I guess, goes from bottom to top. But I think it starts regardless at the bottom. That makes sense.
Right, because the bottom being like our like observations, our senses,
Our experience.
our
Yeah.
experiences, our data.
Yeah.
I mean, I would argue too that there are more like top down knowledge and models and inferences or kind of intuitions that people have
Mm-hmm.
about the world,
Mm-hmm.
generalizable patterns that people see.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right in that like those two converge. When those two converge and support one another,
Mm-hmm.
then you can have a very powerful understanding of what's going on.
Right. So yeah, they need to act together. I think maybe what I'm trying to say more clearly is that um, in a top-down approach, you're putting on the lens of which you want to view the world, so that
Mm.
it's like a certain skill of collecting the right data to come to some sort of conclusion.
Yes.
But I'm saying also that the data is where the important stuff is. The actual
Yeah.
substance is in the data.
Yeah.
And how you view the world, yeah, yes, it's important, but maybe less important than the actual data.
Yeah.
And I think I when we have conversations, I always feel like you think sort of the other way. In which case,
Mm.
a little more significance is placed on the lens at which we view the world, the top down, as opposed to the actual data that exists.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, and this is good because when we come from different perspectives and we like dig through our way and like converge, then you get something really spicy. So
There you go.
okay, so I understand the part that like the base of that's where the good shit is.
Uh huh.
I get that sentiment, but at the same time, so this is a very Petersonian argument, Jordan Peterson argument.
Okay.
It's one of his
Yeah.
tricks that I picked up. So like your methods of collecting data is basically like almost always influenced by these hidden layers of perception,
Mm-hmm.
these hidden layers of top-down processing that weren't even you didn't even know were present. So
Mm-hmm.
that can be in terms of like what kind of data that you come across or like seek
Mm-hmm.
in the first place. What kind of data is you you will either dismiss or like you as, put together as valid.
Mm-hmm.
So in a sense, like there is no escaping the kind of pattern recognition, like confirmatory bias tendencies of our, let's say, like top down approach. Like
Mm-hmm.
even if you think and like you want to just start from the bottom,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe I don't know, maybe we can play a bit and come up with a more solid, more concrete example.
I know what you mean though. Like
Yeah.
we want to believe that we're being as objective as possible, but everything we do is through a subjective lens.
Yes.
Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
It's
exactly
inescapable.
what I'm getting
Right,
at.
right. So, I agree. I think the problem is, and this is not what you're suggesting, but this is a problem that I feel I've run into when thinking about this, is that if you spend too much time trying to decide the top-down approach, you're just like never going to get anywhere. So it's better to do something with your skewed view
Yeah.
to try to observe something than to not do anything for fear that your skewed view is going to be inaccurate.
Yes. Yeah, and
So I think, yeah.
yeah, so it's like um, to like help translate this into more like concrete terms, like your top-down view is like the models, ideas, patterns you have about the your assumptions like that you have about the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no choosing like what combination is perfect or like completely accurately represents the world, because
Right.
the world is like far, far, far beyond our comprehension.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's so damn complex and so damn vast.
Mm-hmm.
But when we muddle through and like have experiences, have bump in with different facets of knowledge, then those things kind will orient our mental models in different ways. Will shape us in different ways. So I agree with that. But then here's a interesting idea. So this is like going more off of like the practicality or pragmatism, the pragmatism aspect,
Pragmatism.
right? So the pragmatism argument by Jordan is like, you know, you're right, like collecting the data and then like comparing that to your model and seeing if it works, like that's like in the lab or like in on paper or something like that, like that's a good arbiter of truth. I think science is very powerful for that. But he argues like separately, like actually like when you have a good model of the world and you act in it, and if that model produces like good results, then that can also be an arbiter of truth, which
Mm-hmm.
and then like Jordan and Sam get into like these whole discussions about what is truth and blah 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 blah, like very long
Okay.
philosophical discussion.
Behavioral.
Yeah,
Behavioral truth.
yeah, behavioral truth. And so like so I want to stretch that even further. So let's say, so when I say mental model, it's like it's gonna be like reflected in your like literal brain chemistry and like your neurocircuitry, right?
Uh-huh.
So let's say you have like whatever set of neurocircuitry on both brains, and well, and your body too, like neurocircuitry extends throughout your body, and so anyways, like you have this mental model, and what if instead of just things working out, like I did A and then like I got a job and I did B and I earned some money and I could live in this world, blah blah blah. Like, what if
Mm-hmm.
the mental models in your life produced harmony?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, what if the mental models in your life was like harmonious with the mental models of other people and like the natural world around you?
Right.
So what I mean by that is like, let's say I have mental model A. And mental model A, like I I like when I see a field of like really good food, I like harvest it all. I like put it back in storage. I like
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like grasp it from the earth like without really. I just want the damn food. Like that's what I want. So I'm not really giving much care to the roots or root systems or whatever. And I'm like storing it back in my house. And I get like, because of that, like I amassed an incredible amount of like wealth or material resources at one particular time, and then I could like sell that and make money, and like I bought a house with that money and I have enough food to feed my family and my community and everyone's happy. So it seemed that like, oh, mental model A, that worked out great. Everyone should follow mental
Mm-hmm.
model A. But then like
Right.
you over time you begin to identify like sources of error or sources of like disharmony with mental model A. So first of all, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, you without knowing like kind of completely tore up the root system that was like growing the food like over and over for years and years. And like now in the next year's harvest, like that's not going so well. And like because you harvested so much food, that did something to the market price of whatever food you had. So there's a disruption in the economy, and you have to go like fix those problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's mental model A. Let's say I have mental model B, where I I discovered this thing of food, but in mental model B, like I'm a part of nature. I don't take more than I need from nature at a given point.
Mm-hmm.
So I like gently harvest a few of those things. And then I leave like a bunch of the food scraps that I know are going to help grow the earth and whatever. So in mental model B, like I end up with, over the long term, like maybe a more sustainable path. Everyone in my community can keep coming back to that food source for good food. And like there seems to be like fewer places of conflict or disharmony as a result of it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you compare those two models, like, oh, but in mental model A, like that guy got a like nice big house and got really rich and had lots of
Mm-hmm.
fun. Like, that's a good thing to aspire to. But in mental model B, like everything was sustainable and like it was kind of harmonious.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like there's a truth and a validity to both of the mental models, right?
Right.
Like there was a harmony in one, and there was like a really like amped up great thing that you could build with concentrated resources at one point in time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was trying to get to is the idea that mental models that are harmonious, like kind of, will stand the test of time and will continue to yield good results to you and like the environment.
Mm-hmm. See, when I think about it,
Yeah.
okay, hold on.
All right. All
Because
right.
like there's a certain aspect of truth to each of these mental models,
Yeah.
and there is a different magnitude of truth with these models in different situations. Would you
Yes.
not say?
Yes. Yes.
And so something like, okay, well, the Christian story of Jesus
Mm-hmm.
says that despite the environment, you
Uh-huh.
should always follow this mental model, and that's what Christ was crucified for,
Yeah.
right? But so in that way, I feel like this is sort of trying to get at that Christian idea
Mm-hmm.
instead of going to the pragmatic idea of, okay, well, maybe there are behavioral truths, but there's different magnitudes of truth, which kind of don't make them true in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
I kind of like these are just words, so but
Okay. These are just ideas.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
so I think I'm making the comparison between, okay, you can say that there is a behavioral truth,
yeah.
and that no matter what, you should always um, engage and always follow that truth.
Uh-huh.
And I'm comparing that with the Christian story.
Yeah.
Christian, yeah. And then I'm saying maybe there are behavioral truths that are pragmatic,
Yeah.
and that you shouldn't always follow the same things because they're not going to yield the same results.
Mm-hmm.
That rather you should do the thing that works the best in that situation.
Yes.
So those two ideas are both true
Yeah.
under what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
But which is more true? Which is the actual truth? Is my question. The one that actually works during different circumstances, or the one that is idealistically supposed to work regardless of the environment, regardless of the circumstance?
Yes. Yes. So I think like they have to meet in the middle. Right? Like
What is the middle?
the middle is a so I gave this kind of model before, but so circle on top and then like tube. It's a cylinder, right?
Yeah.
There's a 3D cylinder. Like that's, let's say that's reality,
Uh-huh.
and then but you're a 2D being. So like you're a set of eyes on this side and you're a set of eyes like looking down. So the
Right. And
2D
you see
being,
a circle.
yep.
Mm. Right.
So from the top, from the side, you see a rectangle.
Uh-huh.
So these two eyes argue like, oh, which is the right path, or
Right.
like what is truth. But
Okay.
when you can maybe combine the two perspectives, or like I guess it'd be like a multiplication of, like if when you join the two perspectives, and you can kind of
Mm-hmm.
transcend 2D and like into that 3D perspective, then you
Mm-hmm.
see like, oh, those two, they were two aspects of the same thing.
Okay.
So like that's the kind of model I use to kind of help me understand like, yeah, there are pragmatic truths, so like behaviors and things that will like help me right now at this moment to help address whatever environmental problem concern I'm having. There's an
Mm-hmm.
idealistic truth to like, I think,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what all humanity or like what people should aspire to at any given point.
Okay.
And like the joining of these two seemingly opposites can only happen like when you can combine the two perspectives in a way that works.
Mm-hmm.
So like that would be like hey, I have this circle, and the other dude says, hey, I have this rectangle. Like, oh, what if I took this circle, like put it like on top of the rectangle, and then I like
Mm-hmm.
wrapped around the rectangle so that these edges fit with those edges, right? So that's like comparable to the work of like, hey, like I have these idealistic perspectives, like, hey, I have these like pragmatic concerns, like, oh, so what if we start like lacing those together, like what can we create there? So
Mm-hmm.
and then what emerges is like a newer third perspective that wasn't available to either party before, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's the generation of like new knowledge or like a new truth.
Some intersection of it, idealistic and pragmatic.
Yes, yes, exactly. But in a way that like doesn't sacrifice either one. That like brings out and like multiplies each other.
Right.
That's like real synergy. So I mean, like long
So
story short,
remember our discussion. Yeah, our discussion of how to make this accessible for the general audience.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this is the point of convergence that I think I'm trying to get with you, in terms of like I want to create something spicy,
Yeah.
and so like when I come back to food, and like, so let's take this pragmatic concern of like my belly hurts and like my mood's not great, like what can I do about that? Like
Mm-hmm.
I've read into like all these high like top down philosophical things about like, oh, you should be love and embody love and like blah 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 blah, gratitude, blah blah blah. But
Yeah.
like I'm like, bitch, like that's not helping me with my gut. I want some, it's like I want something to help me with my gut. So
Yeah.
like as a result of that, I kind of consulted Dr. Shiva's website, like got some recommendations. It's like, oh, buckwheat noodles. Okay, I'll try buckwheat noodles. And then so I
Mm-hmm.
just tried that with the intent of like getting better. And I feel significantly better. I like
Mm-hmm.
tried something out in the real world, like did an experiment, and then well, it seemed to have worked out.
Yeah.
And then I'm also like identifying other like top level kind of thoughts I've had. Or recently I saw a talk by Dr. Shiva on like GMOs.
Mm-hmm.
And like I think most people who have like kind of delved into GMOs and GMO food kind of ideas have seen, or like they think the concern around it isn't like it's not that big of a deal. Like we need to feed people as the world like overpopulates, and like GMOs are the one of the best ways to do that. Science is great.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's that narrative that's told, but I think
Right.
it's a very incomplete narrative, and there's a lot more like nuances and asterisks that people don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
So I go into that rabbit hole a bit, and then I'm like, shit, I don't want to eat GMOs, or like I want to like kind of stay away from them if I can, on like a health basis, on like a societal, moral, philosophical basis, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I like take some actions in my life, and things get a little bit better for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, and these are just so some examples in my life where I'm trying to like integrate my top down and bottom up approaches. So if that makes, and this conversation we're having it too is like I I'm wanting to bridge a gap. I'm wanting to bridge like our souls so that like we can finally meet and merge. Yeah, exactly.
Got the touch tips.
Yeah. So which I think like conversations are great for.
I almost wonder if our podcast should now just be, all right, let's pick a topic
Yeah.
and then we just like fight to the death about that topic. Sometimes I'm like restrained, you know. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I want to like unleash hell,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I don't because you know I still want to be your friend.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like sometimes, June, whatever what you're saying
Mm.
just doesn't seem to register with me.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's some times where I'm just like dismissive of things, and you're just like, ah, why can't you see it from
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
square side instead of your circle side? You know?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I think I used to think that like when you unleash hell, like it was being dismissive. But now I see like no, it's actually helpful. So like when I can like successfully like when you have a skeptical complaint, or like when you have like, yo, that's not making sense, dude. What kind of pseudoscience are you spitting there? I'm like, oh shit, wait, like hold up, man. Like here's what I found. Like here's what I'm seeing. Because I think you're right. Like I've wanted to but struggled to convey like some of these more top down and like big picture kind of thinking in more practical and like scientifically rigorous terms.
Okay.
So some degree of unleashing hell and like trying to like hammer away, like see if it stands, I think would
Uh huh.
be good for good for me and you.
Mm.
So that's definitely a possibility in the upcoming weeks. So like if you take a statement that's, I'll say like something like a statement like, the universe is inherently like musical, and
Mm-hmm.
like the fundamental like the ground of all existence is like vibrations. Like I just say something like that.
Don't say vibrations, please.
Vibrations. It's all
That's
about
so
your
triggering.
vibrations. I know. Yeah, I know it's triggering. So we
Like
got,
the crystal healing, you know?
yeah,
You just
crystal
gotta get
healing.
good vibration.
Yeah. So we gotta have conversations about the triggering things, because I think as a culture we've like put it aside for too long. and
Uh-huh.
and now like and now I think in the online sphere, like people are very divided, like very polarized.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can do the work of talking about those things, and having conversations at like in a very engaging and dynamic way, I think like this, some screen sharing and like sharing of evidence and things like that I think that can be very illuminating too. So I'm hoping this like stream format kind of develops into a kind of
Mm.
a truth seeking, a knowledge validating kind of work.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be a lot of fun for the both of us.
Sure.
It's like, Paul, I made something. It's like, what the fuck is this shit? So no, Paul, try it out. Just like have some of it. And it's like, oh, all right, okay, all right. This is all right, but like this part is a piece of shit. So throw it out. you know.
Yeah, feed me, boy.
Yeah.
Just feed me.
I will. I'll need you to throw out my bullshit.
All right.
All right.
Can do.
All right.
All right, let's footnote that.
All right. That was a good footnote.
Thank you to our audience for engaging with us.
Yes, I saw anywhere from 0 to 1 viewers at different points in the podcast. So thank you for tuning in at different points.
I think that was me. That was
Thank you,
me just
Paul.
checking.
Thank you, Paul, for tuning in.
You're welcome.
But
Yes.
you know that we'll be back with even higher quality content.
I think we might need a bit of rebranding
Rebrand.
too.
Yes,
Maybe that'll help.
rebranding. I think that can help too.
Okay.
All right, and if unless otherwise noted, we shall see you next Sunday
Yeah.
for our Footnotes live.
Take care.